Welcome to Epilogue Podcast, the show where we discuss some stuff that happened on a different show ages ago which nobody really cares about anymore.
Hi, I'm Portponky.
And I'm LeBloc.
Today we're discussing Deep Space Nine, Season 1, Episode 13, Battle Lines. In this episode, Cisco, Kira, and Bashir take Kai Opaka through the wormhole, and then they get stranded on a moon where two groups of prisoners are forced to fight an eternal sort of war. And the upshot of it all is they have to leave Kai Opaka on the moon. So, first things first, can we just address the elephant in the room? Kind of, that Mike from Breaking Bad is in this episode.
Yes, that was supremely distracting because that is so recent in my memory of TV watching.
Yeah, it really is weird. Anyway, I mean, he's great and he does a good job. When this was filmed 22 odd years ago, I guess he would have been just not that recognizable, but now he's been in a major TV show. He really stands out.
Yeah, after having an iconic role such as Mike Ehrmantraut in Breaking Bad, it makes you reframe stuff that he did earlier. And I can't really tell if I'm just attributing his great work in Breaking Bad to this role, but I think he's really good in this role. And I think he really wears that weariness really well as this guy fighting forever.
No, I think he was good. In fact, I think the acting in this episode was generally really good.
Yeah, across the board from everyone, including Bashir.
Yes, he acted like a human. He was still a jerk, but he was a sort of charming, bit of a buffoon jerk, not a lecherous, skin-crawling jerk.
Yeah, there's that distinction. And I didn't think I would readily accept this version of Bashir, but I did. This is a huge change. He actually resembles a decent character now.
Yeah, well, you called it a few episodes ago and he said he's not in it very much. He was eased back for a few episodes, so I think maybe this is his minor rebooting. They just tweaked him a little bit.
Yeah, and they still held on to some character traits, so it didn't come off as this completely different person. He's still eager to set himself apart and show how great he is, but he's also not a disaster of a human.
Yeah, he's still got his egotistical he was patting himself on the back for getting the computer working, but it seemed a little more genuine. I think he said, good work, Bashir, to himself.
Yeah, and Bashir wants to recklessly return to the runabout in pursuit of this scientific discovery. So he's putting his own desires ahead of what would be sensible to do. Anyway, it all worked for me, for Bashir, and this is very encouraging. I didn't think they would pull it off.
Yeah, he's a world of difference from how he was in Move Along Home, where he gets thrust into a strange situation and acts like a confused child half the
Yeah.
time. In this one, he was thrust into a dangerous and confusing situation, and whilst he was still a bit of a prick, he was competent and didn't just make an arse of himself.
Yeah, the strategy of easing him back and then making these minor changes worked wonderfully well.
Kira was really bringing it in as well.
Yeah, this was a showcase for Kira. She wasn't just being forward all the time as she has. There was more to her to show off.
I think this one she more strongly hinted about what she may have done in the past and what it may have been like and it seems pretty grim.
Yeah, we get that, and then on top of that, she's trying desperately to reframe, or she's occupied with shaping her perceived identity, how people look at her, and maybe that ties into her other traits, how she's been mostly guarded. This is first time we really see her vulnerable.
Yeah, because of the Kai being there. So overall, it seems like a good episode.
I enjoyed this episode a lot, and I'll admit that I looked up reviews. I didn't read them, but I looked at scores, and I was surprised that they were lower than I thought they would be.
I would say this is probably not the best episode in season 1. If that's a minor spoiler, I guess. But that's a good thing, right? Yeah?
Yeah. I'm glad to hear this isn't the high point. It is a good episode, I think, but it's certainly better than a lot of the ones we've already seen.
Yeah, the characters have blossomed into something that we can draw from. Draw entertainment or whatever you call it.
Yeah, there's some meat on those bones.
Is that this episode's analogy?
Yeah, I should work salt into that somehow.
Well, meat and salt go together well. So the characters are salted bone meat.
Bashir is the salt. He's lightly preserving the... I don't know where I'm going with this.
Okay, let's move on to plot holes and troubles.
Go for it.
I only have really 2. But they're both kind of fairly serious. But at the same time, they don't really affect the episode negatively. So the first one is Dax is absolutely useless.
Surprise!
She's a chief science officer. She's 300 years of experience doing various things. And O'Brien's just there solving all the problems.
Yeah.
I don't think Dax was even flying the ship.
Oh, I think they were flying it in tandem.
Okay, so she's a co-pilot.
Yeah, that's her claim to fame. Co-pilot.
I think the only reason she was in this episode was so that O'Brien wouldn't just be solving all the problems in silence in a shuttlecraft.
Even though that's what he does, presumably, all the time anyway. Dax needs a re-examination, just as they did with Bashir. Maybe if they ease up on her and then come back with a character actually paying attention to, it would work better.
Well, they don't need to ease up on her because she's already eased up. She's not a character yet. She doesn't have that much depth other than the Trill stuff. So they just need to get something and apply it to her character and see where it goes.
Yeah, that's a good point. She's mostly a blank slate. She's just this person who played that weird brain teaser thing and stole some soup, and that's about it. She's
being used a little bit. I don't know if it's deliberate, but in this episode, and I think in the previous episode, there were camera shots of characters which included her chest area in the foreground out of focus fairly prominently. I don't know if it's deliberate, because that's a good way of framing a group of characters. Just have one character in front, partially, and one character in focus.
Right.
But I wonder if they were trying to make it super sexy.
Continuing with the framing of shots, I thought it was really bad when O'Brien figures out the magnet thing. We're mostly looking at the back of O'Brien's head, and then he occasionally turns his head to look at Dax. It was just really awkward that we're staring at his back for so long.
Yeah, that was kind of clunky, but they don't have much space there. But to be honest, that whole scene was fairly clunky in terms of what's going on in the plot. There was a really nicely framed shot when Odo says that the Bajorans are asking him every 5 minutes where the Kai is, and the other characters go down the lift and they're looking up at Odo as the lift goes down.
Oh yeah,
and he just exasperated. Yeah, that was really nicely shot. And there was a couple other ones, like when the Kai comes back as zombie Kai, silhouetted
Yeah.
against the light shining in. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that elevator usually the way it's been used, a character is going down and leaving the scene. I think that's the first instance where we're inside and uh, traveling within it. It was a good use.
Yeah, it framed Odo's troubles as being stuck on the station quite well. So, the other big problem I have with this episode is that the whole plot makes no sense. Which, it's one of these ones where, like the clone episodes, A Man Alone, where it seems good, but when you analyze it, it just falls apart completely. These guys are kicking the crap out of each other, but he even says when you don't fear death, the rules of war change, but they don't seem to have changed very much.
Yeah, I don't see how it's changed, but maybe that was the point.
I guess it doesn't make any sense. I mean, they're basically just they're doing like a Minecraft griefing on each other constantly.
It's a Civil War enactment.
They don't try to capture the Nolanus guys. Surely they could capture them and torture them or something indefinitely. Exact revenge in more brutal and violent ways that don't involve death. I mean, if it was as it was, it should be a lot worse than it was depicted, although maybe they just didn't want to make it into some gruesome... they have ratings that they have to adhere to
Yeah.
limit what they can show.
But that is weird they didn't try any strategy. It was sit around and wait to die, or go to the other guys who are sitting around and waiting to die. Rinse, repeat.
Presumably they never die.
Oh, yeah, I die in quotation marks.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we can presume that if they're chopped apart, they go back together and that sort of thing. Because they must have tried that. But it's still so weird that they all kill each other, and then 10 minutes later they just get up and wander off home.
Yeah.
Their violence is satiated for now.
Well, it could be a commentary on just how it's become a habit. He even says it's not even relevant now, how the war began. And you invoked Merchant of Venice a few episodes back, so I'm going to refer to another Shakespeare play, Romeo and Juliet. When the play opens, the Montagues and Capulets, we're told, have always been fighting, and we don't even know why. And so it's just become a habit. And they don't try new strategies because this is how you do it. This is the tradition.
If you're going to pull the Shakespeare card, then I guess I'll give it a pass.
that smooths it over.
Well, they're using the same plot points as the greatest playwright in history, so they're probably alright on that one, then. I guess this is the first episode where we've apparently lost a main character. Although, I don't know if she's a main character, because it's only the second time she's shown up.
Yeah, the return that no one was eager for, or holding his or her breath for, the return of Opaka.
It's a shame, because I really warmed to her in this episode. She seemed more like a wise religious leader, and less like a video game tutorial cutscene in this episode.
Yeah, definitely. I had a greater sense of this character in this episode versus the premiere, and then they just dump her on this moon. But they did leave it open for a return, but you know whether she returns again, but I don't, and I hope she does.
Well, she says to Cisco, or power will cross again in the future.
Maybe she was wrong.
Maybe. My lips are sealed.
Did you have any other criticisms?
Not really. Do you have one?
I have a writing one. They make use of one of the most overused lines ever, which is "We've got company," and every time I hear that line, it just makes me groan heavily. It's so bad and overused.
Do people say that in real life?
I don't know. I'm not sure I've ever heard it in real life, but it's just the go-to line when someone approaches and you didn't expect someone.
Yeah, who said? Is it Bashir that said it?
It's Cisco, actually.
He was a bit off in this episode, kind of a bit wooden. Well, maybe that's not off. I don't know.
That's
It's just
part
him.
for the course. That's well tendered meat on that bone. That doesn't make any sense, but there you go.
I wouldn't say he's bad. I think it was just an episode where he was kind of being objective throughout, so he sort of didn't have much emotional content to bring, especially because it was a Kira-centric episode in that regard.
Yeah, there wasn't much there for him.
So do you have a quote of the show? I'm guessing it's not "We've got company."
No, it is not that. I do have a line. It's from Opaka. Only when you accept it can you move beyond it. And it, just replace it with anything, and that's
Bashir.
true. Only when you accept Bashir can you move beyond Bashir.
Yeah, well, you can't deny your problems. Well, you can, it's just not very helpful.
Yeah, and your origins will always be your origins. Oh, there's one thing I wanted to bring up.
Go for it.
We always talk about criticisms and complain about things, but I thought I would praise something.
We do that too.
Yeah, but we don't specifically
Well, it's true. We just
point out
casually
praiseworthy things.
yeah, casual praise, and then like a bulleted list of ways they
Yeah.
messed up.
We're much more organized in our criticisms.
So, what was the one thing that you thought deserved a shred of your praise?
And it's bad because it's actually a backhanded compliment, but I'll get into it anyway. In the beginning, when they show Kira the file they have on her,
Oh yeah,
it's on a little piece of plastic that basically resembles a USB flash drive, way before those existed, I think. Pretty sure.
oh yeah.
And I thought that was pretty neat that
They called it.
they called it. They foresaw that. And then the backhanded part is that they wouldn't use physical media. But they wouldn't. That's too difficult to predict that. But they got the USB stick, so I'll give them that.
I think physical media will always have a place because it's the only way you can isolate a file. Is
Yeah, that's true.
physically separate it from the content. They call quite a lot of stuff. The iPads that they have are iPads.
Oh, right, yeah. I wanted to bring that up earlier and then never did, so there you go. There's another one.
They're
Good job.
literally called pads as well. I think they have 2 Ds in the spelling, but they are iPads.
So we always point out the things that don't make any sense, but they did call some stuff. I think it's worthy of note.
Yes, well done, Star Trek team.
That sounded so sincere.
Yeah. Alright, well, I wonder who the next Breaking Bad star to show up will be.
That would be amazing if Walter White showed up. I'm blanking on his actual name.
Malcolm, and the second name is Middle, I think.
Yeah, there you go.
Seriously, guys, you can't remember? It's Bryan Cranston.
Speaking of guest stars, this show has done decently well in that regard. We had the Nagus. He was well done.
Wallace Shawn.
Yes, Wallace Shawn. And now we have Jonathan Banks.
But Jonathan Banks was not an A-list star when this was filmed, though. He'd been in a few
I'm
shows,
just saying,
but
acting wise, Not as far as landing huge stars, just selecting people who fit these one-off roles.
Well, let's see who's next in the hot seat of guest stardom. It's actually often people that you've never heard of that bring in some of the best performances.
Yeah, then you aren't distracted by who they are, and you can actually watch the performance for what it is.
I think it's the end.
We've chewed the meat off of this bone.
Okay, stop.